Okay, we'll give another minute and then maybe we can start because I know we've got a little tight schedule because the Board of Selectmen meeting's at 7. And I have to get to town hall for that because it's still listed as hybrid, so hopefully we can make it work. So let's see, we've got from Board of Finance, we're just missing 2 people.
Maureen just showed up
Okay,
as an attendee.
I just texted Jean. I don't know if anybody has Cindy's info.
okay.
Sorry about that. Our link wasn't working.
I'll text Cindy.
Yeah, it was the same problem as last time. I guess the original invite had a bad link, so we'll just, she'll have to check all the future invitations.
Peggy, was there an earlier meeting with the library that I missed?
No,
Oh, good. I
no.
misunderstood something.
Yeah.
Lauren said, okay,
No.
okay, good. I didn't
No, I
so.
think,
Okay.
so I'm just thinking, I know we have 2 Board of Finance members missing, but just in the interest of time, because we've got a bit to cover and then our selectmen meetings at 7. So if maybe we can start, and then obviously if Jean and Cindy, they can always follow up with questions later. So, so with that, we will start off with Fire Marshal and Emergency Management, and I will turn it over to Sam.
Chief Kittle's trying to get in too.
Well,
Okay,
I know, yeah, okay, go ahead.
So to start off with, so the emergency management budget's going to remain flat. We did take some money. So before the stipend for the deputy came out of the fire marshal technical account, and we just moved it into its own account. So if you see a $5,000 there that it wasn't there before, that's what it is. So then my budget does the Alice training, the satellite, and VOCI, plus I think originally there was 6,300 in there for annual costs just for miscellaneous stuff during storms and stuff like that. But that's going to all remain the same. The fire marshal, I did have to increase. So our computer programming that we use for inspections in fire reporting software came to its end of life. It wasn't going to be supported. I think it's supported for another 6 months, and that's it. So we were able to find money at the end of last year's budget to switch over. But that increases the annual cost now because everything now is cloud-based. So there's more of an annual cost than us hosting it on our own servers. So that's extra $6,000 increase. That's what that is. Then I asked for an additional spending of $12,151 to increase the hours of the inspectors up to 8 hours. So right now they're each working about 4 hours a week. So that would give them at least a full day, and there is plenty of workload for them. We have about 700 occupancies that need to be inspected, and they're building more apartment buildings. There's a 29-unit apartment building going up on Bradley Road right now. So between the new construction and I guess there's another proposal for one going on Railroad Avenue. I haven't seen the plans for that yet, but and then some of the other business offices that were built as business offices on Wall Street are getting converted to residential. So all those are annual inspections, and we're still trying to catch up on our old stuff. So definitely the workload is there to to give them the 8 hours each a week, and hopefully you guys will support that. And the way this pandemic has been going, I don't know if it seems that more of my time is kind of getting pulled towards emergency management, unfortunately. Even like just in December, I ended up spending almost the whole 2 weeks setting up test kit distribution and stuff like that. So that's about all my requests. Any questions?
I have a question for Stacy or Kristen. Why isn't these extra hours in the additional budget request? Is that unusual, or
What extra hours, Noreen? Which ones?
the inspector hours from 4 hours to 8 hours?
They are.
They are right here.
Page
I'm
266.
I'm
Oh,
sharing
they
my
are-
screen.
Oh, they are
Yep.
an additional, okay, I'm looking at them. Okay, got it. I'm still on page 168 with them. Okay, thank you.
So any other questions for Sam? Fairly
Nope.
straightforward. Okay,
I'll just say, Stacy, I'm looking at it on the, my copy on my computer to save a little bandwidth. So if you don't mind, just reminding us where we are. I'm not looking at your save screen. I'm looking at my own document. So
Oh,
to
yes, the
Noreen's
page
question,
number.
just remind us. But yes,
Page
thank you.
number is right at the top. That's super helpful.
True. True.
Yep.
Okay, so next,
The answer was on 266, Justin, that Stacy just gave me.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Okay,
so next is the ambulance, if we're done with Sam on page 139. And if Chris Bernier is here. I'm not sure if he wants to share his screen or I could share mine.
sorry, what was the page again?
139.
139, okay. I heard something different, okay.
Chris, do you want to run it or do you want me to just share my screen?
You can share your screen. I don't have anything additional that needs to go up. Our request is going to go through pretty quickly compared to past years, because we're not asking for anything additional, which is good. And I think with me tonight, Chris Dowler, our treasurer, and our president, Ed Wolf, and our deputy director, Rush, should be on as well if there's other questions. But we don't have any additional requests for this year. I sent in our draft audit on Friday. I'm not sure if everyone had a chance to receive that yet. I apologize again, it was delayed from our auditors and our accountants, so that's why it's not included in maybe some of the other information you have, but we did send a draft, and then our board will review that and approve it going forward. But overall, we're happy with where we're at right now. The community has been extremely generous in supporting our organization. Our fundraiser has gone up quite a bit over the past couple of years, in part due to the pandemic, we believe. We're also increased, sending out our fundraiser solicitation twice a year. So that's been a significant asset and a huge help that we've seen overall. But I mean, I can go through some of our statistics. I can send that to you guys as well, but we don't have anything additional. With the budget increase that we got last year, we were able to increase our wages and our benefits, which was a significant help in our staffing. So we certainly appreciate that from the town. So that was a good help, or a huge help for us. But I don't know if you have specific questions that we can answer. Or...
Chris, could you just speak a little bit to the reimbursement ratio that you get, the amount that you bill versus the amount that you actually get paid?
Yep. So that hasn't changed through the pandemic. We still have to write off a significant amount in terms of what we call our contractual agreements. So like the state of Connecticut still sets the rates in which ambulance services can bill for. So for example, Medicare and Medicaid, they have their own rate schedules compared to what the state has. And so the Medicare rate is still 40% of the state's rate, and the Medicare rate is still 53% of what the state's maximum rate is. So for example, what does that mean, right? How does that translate into dollars? So for the last fiscal year, 2020 to 2021, we had to write off $777,000. That was money, again, that can't come back in. So unfortunately, that hasn't changed. Most of this is because our payer base is still Medicare and Medicaid. About 75% or so of the patients that we see are in that bandwidth. And for the current year that we're in now, we've had to adjust through the end of December, $416,131. So we're kind of on track So that hasn't changed. Our call volume has increased a little bit in compared to last year, now that people are starting to get out of the completely isolating and quarantining at home, and I guess getting into some other issues where they need our services. So I don't know if that answered your question, Bruce, or.
It did, yep. I just wanted to hear if we were tracking historically, it's about half of what you bill, right?
Yes, yep, and that stayed consistent as well. And I can send out that our statistical document that we normally have. I can send that out as well after this.
And you have a new billing mechanism that is kind of a mid-year implementation, right?
We did. The state of Connecticut, beginning in June of last year, allowed ambulance services to charge for non-transport activities. So in the past, a service like ours or a fire department that transports patients, right, we can only transport if we treat the patient and bring them to the emergency department itself. And so now the state has allowed us, as long as we meet certain criteria, if we respond to a patient in need and we don't bring them to the hospital, if we meet certain criteria that the state has set, we now can charge a reduced rate for those services that are provided.
And are you doing that?
We are. We did start that. We've been working out some software issues with the billing provider and our and the system that we use, but we're slowly getting caught up to that. It's not a significant increase that we've seen overall, but it's a little bit that helps offset. We're finding we've had a fair number of people, I feel like, that are adding to not quite to the collections, but certainly people that are not paying those fees right now. When I looked at some most recent data, we've seen some feedback from the community that, why are you billing us? We haven't transported us to the hospital. So, but not a significant amount of feedback overall from the community in general regarding that.
Chris, can I ask
Go ahead, Noreen.
Thank you, Al. Chris, your issue with the write-offs and because of Medicaid and the Medicare reimbursements, does every ambulance have that throughout the state of Connecticut? Is that,
Yes.
This is an issue that they all are dealing with, right? This isn't something specific to certain types of ambulance associations?
Correct. It's not specific just to Madison. It's all over the state. The Department of Public Health establishes the rates, through the legislature and whatnot. They set the rates that we can charge a patient based on the definitions and the services that we provide. And so when we have a Medicare or Medicaid patient, we're not allowed to charge above and beyond what that rate is. So that difference in between what the state allows us to charge and the amount that Medicare or Medicaid pays, we have to write off.
Okay, thanks, Chris.
Sure.
Chris, I wanted to ask you what strains and stresses you've experienced as part of the pandemic.
Staffing overall has been a challenge for us. Early on in the pandemic was, personal protective equipment to make sure we had the right equipment to keep our personnel safe. But probably staffing overall is just always our number one concern, to make sure that we have enough people to respond out.
Chris, quick question. You've not been able in the past to allow to be allowed to take patients back from the hospital. So if it's an emergency, of course, you can from our house over to the place in Guilford. But if they need to come back to their house, they're not allowed to use you. Is that still in effect?
Yes, that's still correct. Yeah, we can still only provide transportation from the scene, whether that's, it's the doctor's office, Stop and Shop, their house, whatever it is, to the hospital. Unfortunately, we're not allowed to take a patient back from the hospital or back from the doctor's office to their residence.
So that's still locked into the AMRs of the world.
Correct, to the commercial providers. Yep.
Yeah, too bad.
Yep.
Okay, well, that is good news to hear that there's been some changes on the reimbursement, because I know that's been a big issue. Any other questions for Chris?
Chris, this is Justin. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right, thanks. Because my phone's working, but my internet picture's not. So I just want to make sure I was still connected.
Sure.
I would just ask, remember when I was the liaison, we talked about your reserve account, and I know Chris is on as well. So I would just repeat that ask that you guys take a look at that and see if any of that could be contributed towards your budget. If you recall, we discussed, I know you look at nonprofit ratios, but since, because you are supported by the town, maybe the reserve amount could be gradually lowered a bit to help offset the cost. So I would just put that out there now that Jean's your liaison, and see if that's been considered or if that's going to be included in any way.
Sure, we haven't discussed anything like that with Jean yet. I know we looked at it internally again, and our auditors and accountants still kind of looking for 25% of our operating expenses. I don't know if Chris Dollar, if you want to jump in at all. And
yeah, so there's a working group within the Urban Land Institute and for nonprofits and where their reserve accounts should be. And it's about 25%. Separately, our auditor has been to webinars and seminars sponsored by the IRS. The IRS is moving very aggressively with nonprofits for their reporting, tightening them up, because a lot of nonprofits are kind of run their organizations loosey-goosey. Our CPAs and our auditors are sometimes, I think, emphasize what needs to get done. But separately, the auditor has said that they are looking for 25%. 25%. So that being the case, we'd be in the area of about $480,000 in reserves, and we're about $220,000. So we're at about 12% as opposed to the 25%. So I think that already recognizes the contribution from the town. And while the current boards have been very supportive in the last year and gave us a significant bump last year, that isn't necessarily going to hold true for the future boards. And I would be very reluctant to go below what we have right now to further contribute towards reducing the contribution from the town.
Okay, thanks. No, that's a good explanation for everyone to hear.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Chris and team, and for all your hard work. I think we're good. So moving on.
thank you.
Right, next up is Madison Hose.
So I know Chief Kittle had contacted me that they were responding to a fire. So are they available? Is he here?
I don't believe he's here.
Okay.
That's
Go ahead,
actually
Carol.
Someone's raising their hand in the attendees. Michael Vici.
Oh,
Not sure if
yeah.
That would be good if he's raising his hand to come in.
Okay. I'll tell him. Great.
okay.
Okay. No, but Michael Vici is Bobby Kittle. He just called me. So bring him up.
Oh, okay. Let him in.
Sorry about that. Good evening.
So Bobby, this is Stacy. I have your operating budget up showing this current year and then next year with an increase of the 16,950 if you want to talk about that.
Thank you. Good evening. Everybody can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, Bobby.
Sorry, what page?
What?
153 and 154.
Sorry, Justin, 153.
Thanks.
Ready? Hi, good evening. Bobby Kittle, Fire Chief, downtown Madison. With me tonight is Lieutenant Michael Vici. Captain Carroll could not be here tonight, but the 4 officers have put together our request for this coming budget season. A little note of the last 2 budget seasons, we've requested a 0 increase, so we stayed at the same number for the last 2 budget rounds. On a quick note, I happened to print out from 2018, 19, and 20 and 21, our call volume. We've been in the 550s for 2018 and 19, and we are over 600 for 2020 and 2021. So just to show there's been a little more increase in activity the last 2 years. Not all COVID, but COVID was a part of it, but we've had more building fires, more vehicle accidents, and other service calls, just to point out there. Like previous years before, on the screen that you see shows what we request the year before, and what we did on this year is put a variance next to all of them, what we estimate them to be. We've gone up in a few things, we've gone down in a few things, we've adjusted what we've seen come in. The fuel, for one thing, we've been spending less on that. So if you just pick through them all, you can see the differences. And if you have any questions on any one of them, I'd be happy to answer.
Yeah, Bobby, I'm Fillmore here. It looks like, hi. It looks like your biggest increase is that very lovely thing called insurance. What the heck is happening there?
That's the rate that the insurance costs for us to run the firehouse, and that's the number they told us it would be for this coming year. We ask every time before budget season comes up what the number would be, and that's what we were told.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Sorry about the noise. I can't turn that down.
Chief, what is the dock upgrades line?
The docking upgrades would be.
It's under equipment maintenance. It's under the Zodiac, actually. So I'm assuming it is the dock that's in the water.
That is correct. So with the addition of the new boat that will be here next summer and the floating docks that were graciously given to us by the Beach Club, we plan on doing more work with the ladder that's existing there now. It's not in the best of shape. We need the boat to be here to see what heights and levels would be to make that more compatible to offloading and onloading from that dock getting down, is what we estimate at.
But our long-term plan is still to run the docks right up onto the beach, right?
Minus what the fire department's using, that I couldn't tell you what the town's plan is, but yes, our plan is to keep it the way it's set up now. Yes, sir. But definitely we need to overhaul the ladder situation that's there. It's just not a sturdy, stable ladder for us to get up and down, and especially if we have patience, if we're going that way as well.
Chief, can you talk just briefly about the radio maintenance? Looks like there's a $2,000 increase there. Just kind of what's needed and why. I know we just invested a bunch in radios, so I guess I'm confused as to why that would be.
Sure. So a lot of that has to do with the portable radios with the batteries. The batteries go bad after a while. They do get wet. They break down. We do have a nice new recharging station that we purchased when we purchased all the radios at that time. When the batteries go in that charger, and they tell us if they're good enough to recondition, when they're bad. So over time, they just tell us there's like a little red light button on there that says the battery life is up, time to go. The microphones go after a while, they get hit, they get damaged. Just basic wear and tear on the material itself is what that maintenance cost would be. Each member who is certified in firefighting to go inside of a building, they carry their own radio as well. So the radios are being used more than they ever have, which is great. There's more communication. Along with that comes the batteries get used more in their lifespans, wrap up quicker than what they would just sit in the truck.
Perfect.
Chief, I had a quick question about the floating dock. Can we just go back to that for a sec?
Sure.
On CIP, there was a line item for a floating dock. Is that different than what we see here or in addition to?
I don't believe, is it under mine for CIP? Or is that under the town? Because I believe the town has some other project with that going on. This
So-
would just be with what my current setup is now that I have down there.
Gotcha. So there will be probably 2 floating docks.
Again, like I said, I don't know what the plan of the future is for
Okay.
what the beach and rec side of it is.
Gotcha.
It's just, I know we have the 3 floating docks right up against the wall currently with the 2 posts. Those
Yeah.
are the ones I maintain now.
Yeah, Katie, there's a whole kind of harbor management plan that's been being discussed for West Wharf, and we're actually going to be getting together again to talk about, because there's a grant that's out there. There's a whole plan that, we're trying to pull together some of the stuff we talked about with ARPA doing at West Wharf, some things the Board of Selectmen are going to talk about tonight. And then there was the harbor management plan also. So that's kind of a whole separate discussion, but obviously will be coordinated. Sam is part of that conversation with what the emergency services need.
So yeah, so I think we're just going to want to be careful that we're not running 2 overlapping projects here. And that if the plan to run the docks up onto the beach happens quick enough, then it takes away the need for Madison Hose to upgrade their ladder, because they're going to be running the stretchers right off the beach.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's all points well taken. I think the point of contact that's consistent with what the firehouse is doing is Sam, and he's part of that whole harbor management plan. So working with our harbor master. So
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
I think Sam is back if you guys have further questions for him.
Not unless I completely confused him by my question.
So I think there's a couple different things. So I think the $1,000 that's in the Madison Hose Company budget is for upgrades for dock lines and stuff to make the current dock and the new boat fit to the dock. The gangway from the docks to the beach is a separate project. And Chief Kittle is correct. That ladder that's there right now is a hazard. I don't know when this gangway is going to happen, but something needs to be done with that ladder. Right now, the top is only being held on by 1 bolt. So something has to be done in the meantime. And if you think it's a waste of money, then unfortunately it's a waste of money, but it's safety. Something needs to be done with that ladder. But we can see what's going to happen. We have a few months before the boat's going to go back into the water. I don't know where Scott Erskine is with the gangway. But I think we have approval from Deep to put that in. I'm not exactly sure. I talked to him last week and he was trying to get pricing for it. And I think a lot of it was more than what he thought it was going to be. So I really don't know where we're at with that.
And Sam, are they both planned for West Wharf?
So, yes, so that gangway is for West Wharf. And then eventually there's going to be another plan coming forward to the town to improve that docking system for the public. Whether or not the town goes for it or not is, but there is money, there is grant money out there that we can use to expand that docking for the public to dock their boats and use it. So did I confuse things more or?
No, very helpful. Thank you.
And again, just to go on with the ladder for 1 second, I know it's a small item down there, but West Wharf really isn't lit up at nighttime. And a lot of the summertime late night calls or the flare sightings and this and that. And when we get down there, that ladder is really hard to climb down to get onto the boat. I mean, yeah, we can jump in the water and go out that way if it's low tide, but time is of the essence. And that ladder just needs to be upgraded, in my view.
Okay, any other questions for Chief Kittle?
Chief, what about the gear line? Obviously you had a budget of 20 grand going to 25 grand. Can you just comment on why such a big increase?
Sure. So we do have a couple newer members in the department, and when they go to certain classes that they have to do structural firefighting training in, their gear has to be up to date, to spec, to code, meaning I can't go in the closet for any old set of gear that's outdated. 7 years is where we like to be at, between 5 and 7. So between every year that comes up, depending on how many members are up for a new set of gears, how that item falls. So last year there was 5 guys that needed gear. This year it can be 6. The other year it can be 4. The lieutenant actually has a spreadsheet now of every member when their gear is up for replacement. And that includes the helmet, the coat, the pants, the gloves, the hood. There's a lot more to it than just seeing the coat and the pants. But unfortunately, with the times we're in too, everything has increased in price. So the price of the structural firefighting set of gear has gone up as well. So in this past year, I think we've taken 3 or 4 new members in the department, and two of them have gone through the class, or 3 of them have gone through the class, and I got 1 going through now. And then in another 6 months, I'll have another member go through that class as well. So after their probationary period is when I get them a set of gear. So that's how those numbers fall in line too, Scott.
Perfect.
May I ask a question? Where does the replaced gear go? Do we recycle it? Do you give it to somebody? What happens to it?
The old gear that's here, if it's in halfway decent shape, we'll use it for training purposes, so we don't destroy our good structural firefighting gear. A lot of vacant houses type things that we practice on, we'll put it on the training dummies that we have. We'll have it pretend to be a down firefighter somewhere. So it does get used in some way, but when it reaches its expiration date, you can't use it for structural firefighting anymore. And it's just
Well, I know you folks always make good with every dollar, so I'm not surprised to hear that, but I was just curious. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, my mute was stuck. So, okay, great. Well, thank you very much. And I'll just, we'll keep things moving here, but thank you very much for all the detailed explanation on your line items. And, you know, noticeably you haven't asked for an increase for a while, and we understand that costs increase and things change. And so there's some operational needs. It sounds like you need to get supported. So with that, let's move on to next. And keep in mind, for Board of Selectmen, we do have a 7 o'clock meeting that we have to, or at least I have to physically get to town campus for. So let's keep things moving. Next up.
So next up is North Madison Fire. I think Mike Penders is here. I will share the screen of the total budget. The town accounts, however, he has a couple of items that he wants to discuss, not only his operating budget as well as one of his small CIP accounts. Mike, do you want me to share the screen, or do you want to share the screen?
No, if you don't mind, that would be great.
Sure.
So evening, everybody. Thanks for taking the time out. Again, Mike Penders, Chief of North Madison Fire. And really we're coming this year with 2 slight increases. One is in our operating account. We're looking for a $10,000 increase. We were currently at 120,000, and we've actually been essentially level funded since the 13-14. In 2011, 2012, we were at 127, and then we were down in 12 and 13 to 124,960. And essentially it comes down to increase in operational costs. We've had a large increase in membership since those earlier years. And with that comes, as Chief Kittle had said, additional training, both for the EMS side and the fire side, and also regulatory, the component of our annual physicals. They vary in cost depending on the member. So it's hard to have a fixed amount per se in what they charge, but also the EMT courses are now up to $1,700 per student. And that's fairly consistent. They don't give reductions for 2 or more enrollees or 3 or more enrollees. And also the firefighter 1 class offered through the state is $1,200 for a firefighter 1 course. So just the initial entry-level training, the costs have gone up, as well as in-service training that members take through the State Fire Academy. So the $10,000 really speaks to the increase in operational costs. And then I was also looking for our hose and equipment fund. We had had a reduction a few years ago, and I was looking to get us up to $40,000, so a $3,000 increase. And again, that really states to or ties itself back to the regulatory components, apparatus checks, DOT inspections, really just to cover the cost of keeping the equipment in service. A lot of it has to go out for regulatory testing, hose and ladder testing. The SCBA all requires certain, basically manufacturer specific testing that has to be done by a third party. And that is it for our requests. I'm open to any questions.
Any questions?
Not a question, just a request. The table that we received on page 161 reflects the increase of $10,000, but all of the line items are the same as the previous year.
Correct. There was an adjustment sent over.
So Bruce, the line items in Munis are just rolling over the budget. And then we look at the additional budget requests in the back of the book, the additional budget request tab. So that's where you'll see the 10,000 increase. So this is, remember, we do like a rollover, what it would be contractual, and then we talk about each of the additional budget requests separate. So that's where you'll see the 10,000 on around page 266.
267.
Yeah. The only difference in Mike and I talked today is that I brought this screen up is because of this 37 for CIP for their small hose and equipment. This is not in the document. We talked today, Mike wanted to talk about increasing that 37,000 up to $40,000. So starting today on, we'll continue to talk about that and we'll add that to the additional budget requests. It's not in your document as of right now.
So when you do that, could you just break out the line items that the 10,000 represent? Could you just identify which line items that includes?
Yep,
Sure,
and
please.
that was on here. It's not in the book. It's not in the book. We can share that as well. I'll send that out to everybody.
Thank you.
Yep.
The fire
Okay.
alarm's going off right now at 6:15, telling us to fund their budget.
We know the radios are working, right?
Yeah.
Right. All right. Well, thank you very much, Chief Penders, for that. And, if people, once they get the detail, if there's more questions, we can ask during our individual budget workshop. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Chief.
Okay. All right. And who is next?
The library on page 219.
Yep. Okay, great. 219.
Okay. Hey, everybody.
Do you want to share your screen, Sunny? Because I don't really have.
I do. I have a little
Okay.
slideshow, and I promise I can go through it very quickly. I'm the last person to go, right? Okay, I will get you out of here on time. I promise.
Oh, we're good, actually. So
Okay. Okay, great.
He's going for 45 minutes now, Peggy.
yeah.
No, with driving time. Okay. Can everybody see that? Is
Yes.
it working? Okay. All right, so I have a concise budget presentation for you this year, and I'm happy to say that I have a lot of good news for you. So I will start with I'll start with the bottom line, and then I'll fill in some details. So our request for the next fiscal year is $1,409,867. This represents a 6% decrease from the current approved budget this year. And it will be 82% of the library's overall budget. So the reason why that number went down, our original plan was to request a very modest 2.4% increase this year, just inflationary. However, we got some last minute good news about our pension. And thanks to that change, the library's overall budget is decreasing about 3% compared to the current fiscal year. The other thing I wanted to point out is that our board has committed to increasing their fundraising commitment by almost 12%. So that's why we're able to decrease our request from the town by 6%. I hope that makes sense. As you know, the Board of Trustees has made a really conscious effort to increase their fundraising abilities over the past several years. Their hard work is really paying off. If you looked over the current year forecast that we sent you guys, their fundraising this year is going extremely well. So based on that success, they're increasing their commitment for the coming year and just scooting the budget request down a little bit. So that's good news. I can tell you a little bit more detail about the pension changes. So as a result of legislative changes to both the pension interest rate calculation and amortization period, as well as robust portfolio growth in the pension balances, our actuaries have advised us that the minimum funding requirement for a defined benefit plan is going down to $40,000, which is dramatic. Currently, they don't expect any big change to their guidance next year, but of course, there's no guarantee as those laws are always subject to change. But for now, it's good news. And then just so you know what this budget includes in the big picture, it includes funding all of our current operations. Things are going really well. And then it includes a 2% cost of living increase for our current staff members who have been here 6 months or longer. And then we are including an expansion of Monday evening hours to 8 p.m. So currently we're open from 9 to 5 on Mondays. We'd like to increase it to 8 p.m. That will make it easier for working adults to visit the library. Monday is also a popular night for meetings. We've gotten several meeting requests for Monday evening, so it'll increase public access to our meeting rooms. And I know this has been, this past year hasn't been the easiest, but despite the impact of COVID, it's actually been a really good year for the library, and we're excited to continue building on that success. So I want to thank you all for your continued support, and I can answer any questions you might have.
Nice job.
This is great news. Thank you very much, Sunny. I just have a quick question, and maybe this is for Stacy. Because back in the back, there is in the request for addition, there's another 40 grand. So has that gone away? Has that been included in the net reduction, or how's that work?
So the total reduction from the requested was 130,000. So that 40 will go away, and then we will reduce the rollover budget by additional 89.
So that's great. So we can scratch off that additional 40 request, and it still goes down. Wow, Sunny, that's amazing. Good job.
I know.
I think the only thing people like more than a flat budget is a decreased budget. So thanks for all you do.
And you're our first.
Standard now, when you reduce it, I'm happy. Great job, Sunny. Thank you.
You can tell
Not
by
lucky this year. You all know, if you've been on the boards for a while, you all know the pension has been a bit of a roller coaster over the past couple years, and the last change was sudden and did not go in our favor. So we're so happy to get this good news and to, take the win this time around.
And
Sonny, there's no tension in her face tonight. Last couple of budgets she delivered, a little bit of tension there, and it's nice.
Yeah, it's nice, isn't it?
So did, I understand that Rick Davis had a big part in this recalculation in budget, and if so, kudos to him.
You're here.
May I ask a question? I think I got mute off. Yes, Sunny, thank you so much. And it's always great to get good news. I'm just curious of the 82% of your budget, the library budget that the town, the taxpayers cover. Is that of your actual budget or your proposed budget?
It will be 82% of our proposed budget for fiscal year 22-23.
And would you know, I know you're relatively new, but would you know that, does it run pretty close to that with the actual over the last few years that the library is really covering about 17-18% of the budget, valuable budget?
Yes, I think I understand your question. So in my tenure here, the town has provided around 85%. And not to toot my own horn, but myself and then Nicole as our development committee chair, and then now as board president, we have done a very good job at staying very true to that budget. So over the past 3 years, it has held true of the actual budget. What we have shot for in our proposed budget has been we've been very on target. That was not true last year, just because COVID and budget cuts and getting the PPP loan and all that, it was crazy. So last year, the town actually only contributed in the end about 72% of our budget, but I don't even really count last year because that was such an unusual year.
But I think, again, Sunny, if that's your goal and Nicole's goal, I think that is fabulous. I think that's great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Yeah, good job.
And thank Nicole too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you, Sunny. I was trying to remember that. I think, wasn't it the mortality table that you also were impacted by? Yes, and that's what the town went through as well. So we've had some roller coasters on the pension for sure. So it's nice. The town is also seeing a little bit of a benefit this year as well. So
good.
Glad to have that happen. So,
Peggy, I have a question here, and I fear I may be a stinker with this question, but I'm curious as to why the library board, in recognizing the ups and downs of pension contributions, wouldn't want to try to smooth this out and not dramatically reduce the pension contribution this year, but rather try to level it out for future years.
I know Rick, our treasurer, Rick, is attending this meeting. So if you want to pop him over as a panelist, he could probably answer that question better than I could. I know they looked at a lot of different options this year. So I'm sure he has a good answer for you.
I don't mind doing that offline, but
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
No,
We
actually, I
can
think it's a great question, Al. I was thinking the same thing.
Oh.
Yeah,
I was definitely thinking the same thing, Al.
Okay, I'll make some notes. I'll have him sort of give you guys a summary. I know they looked at a lot of options this year, including jettisoning, seeing if they could sell off the pension altogether.
I finally got in.
They did a lot of research this year, so I'll have him
He's
give you
here.
a summary.
He's here. I just got in. You want me to speak to it now, or would you prefer to for it later?
That'd be great.
Okay, I believe the question was why aren't we smoothing things out instead of participating with the swings? And I think that will carry forward in terms of smoothing it out. There's been some legislative changes that caused us to whipsaw over the last 2 years. We don't expect that to occur going forward, primarily because the legislative changes are such that they will stay with us for probably another 7 to 8 years. Some of the provisions will expire in 2030, and they'll be narrowly waning throughout that period of time. So we really don't expect a lot of changes. The one big caveat to that would be portfolio, which has grown dramatically, as with most portfolios. But as we learned from the last week and a half, that portfolio could drop considerably. However, that has a relatively minor impact on the overall minimum required contribution to the pension plan. So all things considered, we shouldn't see any material whipsaw like we've seen in the past. Does that answer your question, Al?
Well, it sounds like you've considered it very carefully. I appreciate that.
And I'm sorry, were there other questions?
Justin's got his hand raised, but he's on mute. unless he's just putting something over his head, like a thinking bubble.
I don't see, Justin, do you have
I
a
think
question?
Justin's frozen.
No, he moved.
I'm here.
You have your hand raised.
I don't see it.
Okay, well, if you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer them. Just let us know. Thank you.
All right. All right. Well, thank you very much for that. Thank you, Sonny. This is probably the quickest library discussion I think I've ever had in my career. So, with that, I think then we're completed. And once again, just as we did last time, for board members that might want to dig deeper again in some of these presentations, you have the opportunity during your budget workshops, and feel free to just reach out ahead of time so that the staff knows to schedule you to visit your workshops as you go through the budget, so they can get, in on people's schedule. All right. And with that, thank you very much. I think we're done. Okay. Bye-bye.
Good night, everyone. Thanks.